Okay, our first segment today is a story about from Fox 32 that cites Geraldo Rivera. Somehow, I don't understand how people cite him unless it's to mock him. He certainly isn't a source of credible information, but they do it. And it's interesting because if you go to the link, which will be up on the podcast, you can get all the links on our website for the issues we cover today. If you go to the link, there's a video story and then a print story. And the print story and the video story are not the same. They're different. They're related, but not the same. So we're going to show you the video. It's 5 minutes. I think it's interesting, mainly for the fact that they booked the wrong guest. You can tell that. They're trying to get the guest, who is Dr. Lance Williams, by the way. You never hear the doctor at all in his title. At least I don't remember hearing it when they're talking about him or addressing him on the show, which I find very interesting that they don't call him doctor. One of it's because he's a black male. Lance is on our community advisory board. He's also the assistant director of the Isaac Carruthers Center for Inner City Studies at Northeastern Illinois University. He's out in Woodlawn. That's where the center is. So they want to talk about being cops retiring and crime spiking, and it's that, it's the Fox News way of looking at the world. But they book a black progressive professor who knows what's actually going on the street. He came from the street, and he's intimately connected to it every day in his work. Not the right guest. So we're going to talk. I'm going to show you the video. We're going to talk about the video. Then I'm going to go back and we're going to take out some pieces of the news story that accompanied the video. Okay, I'll be back in 5 minutes right after this.
An alarming report revealing the number of Chicago police officers that have retired this year has already surpassed all of the retirements in 2018, and that they are on track to be the highest number in the department's history. In fact, one report claims Chicago gang members now outnumber the city's police officers by 10 to 1. This comes as the crime situation in Chicago grows out of control and there are calls to defund the police. Joining me is Lance Williams. He's professor at Northeastern Illinois University and the assistant director of Jacob C. Carruthers Center for Inner City Studies. Good morning to you. Thank you for joining me this morning. Let's just start with these retirement figures. They're coming from the Police Pension Board. They were revealed by the Sun-Times. Why are so many officers retiring?
Well, first thing that I wanted to correct, I'm no longer the assistant director of the Carruthers Center of Inner City Studies, so I want to just make sure we don't put that misinformation out. But thanks. Thanks for having me, Sylvia. And yeah, so I think, one of the main reasons that Chicago police officers are retiring and moving on, it's just because of the stress affiliated with the job. There's been a lot of pushback on law enforcement across the United States of America with the social justice movement, a lot of criticism for aggressive policing, police brutality. And I just think that a lot of the officers are kind of at the point where they feel like this is a bit too much. The job is too risky. The rewards are not high enough. They're not being appreciated. And so I think a lot of them are moving on.
Yeah, I'm wondering, though, what kind of impact is this going to have, or is it already having on the city's crime rate? Is this why we've been seeing it so bad?
I think there's some influence of policing on crime and violence in Chicago, but we have to be really clear that the bulk of the crime and violence that we see in Chicago is not a result of police efforts or lack of police efforts. It's really a systemic, a social construct problem. We have a lot of problems with marginalization in these hotspot communities. Isolation, lack of job opportunities, educational opportunities, housing opportunities. Those are the main things that drive violence. And I think law enforcement is frustrated because it's as to police situations that are really social and cultural in context. not really criminal. And so even with a massive police force, you're not going to solve the problem of violence that we have in Chicago.
Yeah, and I want to talk to you about that more in a bit, but I want to address what's gone on with the superintendent. He met with the president this week along with some other police leaders, and he tweeted this, and I want to show you this tweet. He said, "We need a sense of urgency right now so we can save lives and serious consequences for those driving gun violence in our cities." Okay, now he's talking about getting federal help, which he is calling a strike force. When the Trump administration wanted to send in the feds, our city leaders said no way. Why do you suppose this is different now?
Yeah, well, I don't think it's different, and I would disagree with the superintendent. I mean, I agree that we need a sense of urgency, but again, this strong arm law enforcement approach to this is definitely the wrong-headed way to, I think about this. Again, most of the crime and violence that we see in Chicago, particularly in African-American communities, is not driven by gang activity. It's really interpersonal conflict. It's stress. It's anxiety that's really playing out amongst a group of young men who are so severely isolated from resources in society. Their frustration and anxiety plays out in violence. And then with easy access to weapons, it just makes the situation much worse.
Okay, so let's go back to something you just referenced, which is, does adding more policing stop crime? Historically, has that been shown to have an impact?
No, there's no evidence that shows that there's a correlation between the increasing of police officers and the reduction of crime and violence. I think what you will see is there's a perception of communities being occupied, which then again it increases the stress in those communities. People feel unsafe because the large presence sometimes when you see of law enforcement coming in. I think what we want to do is we want to try to reduce to the best of our ability, reduce the anxiety and the frustration and the stress in these communities. That's one of the main ways to get that violence down.
Okay, so we're talking community, and that's a really important aspect of this. The question is that part of the solution? So Lance, I want to talk to you about that. So stand by. We'll be right back with more from Lance Williams right after this break.
Okay, so on the nameplate forum for Lance, and I'm only using Lance because I know him, it's Dr. Lance Williams. No doctor, no professor, just his name. Wonder why Fox did that. I think it was a mistake to book him. They were looking for the frantic, lunatic, oh my God, the world's out of control. It's all about horrible gang members and they outnumber the police. And oh my God, the world is ending. And we need more cops. We need more cops, harsher penalties. That's what we need here, ladies and gentlemen. And that's not what they got from Lance. And they weren't going to get that from him. Right? I don't know. I just think that was so wrong. So let's turn to the print story that accompanied that video on the Fox website. So much embedded in this horrible story. So, it's full of assumptions with no evidence. All right, this is what they do. I quote, "It shows that between January and June, some 363 officers called it quits." Well, did they call it quits or did they just retire? How many retired? How many left before their 20 years were up? That's the real number. And by the way, how many of those, or even, first of all, how many retired? How many was that over than last year? Or the year before? Normally expect somewhere between, I think they have around 300, let's say 300 to 400 a year, 250 to 350, 400 a year retirements. So in 6 months, 360C probably seems high for a normal year. Okay, how much higher is that actually? That would take work. That would be journalism, regurgitating statistics, stenography. That's what most reporters, especially TV reporters, do most of the time when they're doing these stories. It's a mixture between laziness, incompetence, and just the fact that the constraints of the thing you have to produce this story with video and audio and all this stuff within 8 hours. It's all going to be done that day. You walk in, by the time you leave, there's got to be a story done. It's a horrible system. I continue. And another 56 were expected to retire this month. Great. How many is that over the normal month? The data's out there. How many more is that? I'm not arguing it's over. It's probably, considering we're probably looking somewhere around 30 a month if we're around 350 a year. Okay, that's over. But how much? How much over? Watch this. This is where they're getting their data, ladies and gentlemen. Fox News' Geraldo Rivera, citing Superintendent David Brown and Mayor Lori Lightfoot, wrote the city's roughly 117,000 gang members outnumber the city's 13,000 police officers by roughly 10 to 1. Where is that 117,000 number coming from, ladies and gentlemen? It is totally and completely unverified. Could be 200,000, could be 40, could be 20. It's complete BS number. Remember, there are lawsuits, not sure if they're still in play, but there was lawsuits about the gang database. McDumpke, ProPublica exposed how horrible it is. Has people 110 years old in there. Those are people counted in the numbers. Has probably a lot of dead people in there. People that are associated with or related to or friends with people that are in gangs probably got sucked into that. How many are really out there? They don't know. They don't know. But this is the problem when you get Lightfoot and Brown spinning the hysterics that they spin, is it gets picked up by unsavory, scumbaggy, lunatic reporter, if that's even what you call Geraldo. Honestly, I think it'd be better off for all of society if he just kept looking for Al Capone's vaults. Just give him a shovel, stick him in a basement, tell him somewhere down there's Al Capone's thing, and we'd all be much better off. You certainly don't, as a straight news reporter, if this is what the reporter is, you don't cite Geraldo Rivera. Come on. Are you kidding me? Continue. This is Rivera. All you can do with this defund the police nonsense is ignore the fact that they are essentially assigning a third world existence to huge segments of the population, all in the name of anti-racism. Geraldo Rivera. Geraldo, what does defund the police have to do with the fact that there have been no jobs in these communities for 50 years, 60 years? Closer to 60, probably a little over 60 now, right? What does defund the police have to do with the fact that they've sucked all the money out of the schools? And in Chicago, they've closed 50 schools, and they were all in the black and brown communities. Most of the kids, by scientific study, got proven to go to equally bad performing or worse schools. It wasn't to put them in better schools. That was a lie. Another same study from the University of Chicago said it had that the closing of schools and shifting kids around had a tremendous impact on their educations. That wasn't defund the police, brother. It was your friends at Fox News and the ilk and the people who own all those Fox News and all the businesses and all the corporations who sucked, and Rahm Emanuel and Daley, now Lightfoot's doing it, just sucking the resources out of these communities. It has nothing to do with defund the police. But he's an idiot. And here we have an idiot reporter in Chicago quoting Geraldo Rivera. Who the hell does that? Who has any credibility in this business and is quoting Geraldo Rivera in any way that isn't just making him look like the fool he is? Outside of that, you don't quote him, ever, if you have any credibility in the news business. But we're on Fox News. I guess local Fox is becoming like the national Fox. No credibility.